Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Overtime. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter. Today, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died at the age of 86. With me now is Saka Count. Saka, how are you?
Good. Pretty good. A little surprised, but I really shouldn't be too surprised. That her health was going down for a while.
Yeah, she's been battling cancer for quite some time, and she had gone in for more treatments. I think they were hiding just how bad it was for a number of reasons. But it's sad and it's unfortunate. She was groundbreaking. She really kind of went by her own rules, and in the last couple of years, started taking pot shots at Trump, which is unheard of from the U.S. Supreme Court. And she was really quite vocal about the fact that she really did not like him. I think that was in character for her. So now we've asked Saka on because he's well versed in politics. He's Canadian, which means he is better versed in U.S. politics than most Americans. So thank you, Saka, for joining us. Um,
No
this
problem.
this causes some interesting questions. I think the first I'm going to ask is she now obviously is going to have to be replaced, and this is, I think, one reason why it's an odd position, I think, to be in. What you'll find is Supreme Court justices
Mhm.
who hang on to dear life for one reason and one reason only, and it's to not let the incumbent president pick another um, judge. And it looks like Trump is going to get yet another pick. People are still upset over what happened with the Gorsuch nomination, and
Mhm.
what do you think is going to happen at this point?
Well, I mean, it's tough to say because, obviously, a lot of people would probably be optimistic of the fact that you're not too far away from election day in the U.S. So the possibility of holding out um, is there, but unfortunately, because if Trump is defeated in the next election, um, he still holds office until January. Which is
Oh, we appear to have lost Saka. We have lost you. Let me double. Oh, there you are.
okay. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep, yep.
Okay. No, I was saying that election is coming up, but even that being the case, if even if Trump is defeated, he still holds on to the office until January. So that's enough time to be able to push through another Supreme Court justice under his watch.
So the assumption being, it sounds like what you're saying is, so I mean, I think if they try to push it through now, there's going to be some consequences politically. I there's it could go either way because I think it is going to rally the Democrats. The Democrats are going to be very upset. Now, what happened with I said Gorsuch. Is that the one I'm thinking of? Who was it that Obama had nominated? It began with a G. It's escaping my mind. Somebody in the live chat will kick that up. But Obama had a nominee. It was a good nominee. It was a middle of the road. Certainly wasn't high end liberal, and they wouldn't even hear it. And I actually argued that since Tacit, oh Jesus, silence implies consent, but it's an actual legal term. It was Garland. That's right. Thank you. So we put Garland up. I had said that okay, silence implies consent. So yeah, all he needs is the consent of the Supreme Court. Since they didn't withhold said consent, and since silence implies consent, I thought he should just put Gorsuch on. There's nothing that says he can't do it. They haven't withheld their consent, and silence implies consent, and they refuse to even hear it. So, but Obama didn't listen to me. What can I say? So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
arg
Bad track record, not listening
yeah,
to us.
yeah. So the argument that Mitch McConnell then made was it's too close to an election. You can't put somebody on, and there was no constitutional warrant for this. He was just making this up. He wanted to steal the nomination. So he said, well, it's too close to an election. We
Yeah.
need to hear what the people say. Well, the people already had their say. The people voted for Barack Obama twice. This was his choice. This is what the Constitution says. People had already spoken, but nonetheless, he made that argument. It worked. They held on to, or it's not that it worked. The Senate was held by the Republicans. There was nothing we could do if they weren't even going to schedule a hearing on it. So it went on to the next term. Trump got the first nominee right off the bat. It's considered a stolen nominee by a lot of Democrats, myself certainly included. So that was in February. That was February before the elections. It is now September before the elections. What do you think is the probability that well, obviously McConnell's not going to make the same argument. What's McConnell going to say when somebody says, hey, in February of an election year, you said we can't do it because it's an election year. It's now September. You can't do it until the next president.
Well, he's not going to say anything. Like they can, it doesn't matter. It's the party allegiant blinders that get put on is that you would have every single person who's a Democratic voter out there, throwing out the clips, throwing this stuff out there, hey, are you going to be consistent? And it's just not going to be acknowledged, that was ever a thing that was ever said. Like you said, there's no constitutional grounding for saying that it has to wait until that close to an election. But it was a good example. Honestly, the Republicans just play the game better than Democrats. The way that they can legitimately just shut down the government until they get their way. They throw tantrums better than the Democrats ever can, and they have the power to do it. And unfortunately, they have the power now to essentially be to be hypocrites to what Mitch McConnell said back was 2016, and the issue now is that they the Republicans don't care because this puts them in a strong position. That for a president to be able to put like 3 Supreme Court justices in during their term, I mean, I think last time that something like that happened was probably like 40, 50 years ago. I think it was during the Nixon administration he got to do that. And because you're looking already at an election where the nation, the U.S. is so divided, that level of hypocrisy from the Republican Party back in the previous election isn't going to apply here. This is a battleground. They're going to win, and if they're going to do just whatever tactics they need to, including going back on things that they may have said before in the past.
Well, and so I think there's a question of what's it going to cost them to really fight for this seat. They're going to look like hypocrites. They're going to look terrible. Mitch McConnell knows that, doesn't seem to care, and so far that actually hasn't had any real. I mean, when Mitch McConnell lied during the impeachment hearings and said that really it's not the job of the Senate to gather evidence or even to have the trial. All that should be done by the it's not the job of the Senate to do that. That should be done by the House. The House should already have all the evidence, all the witnesses, all of it done, wrapped up in a nice little bow for the Senate, which is irrefutably not how it works. But he said that. He used that as grounding for we're not going to call any witnesses. It's not our job. That's explicitly their job. That's what they're supposed to do. He got away with that.
Unfortunately, there's no accountability. There's no accountability to it. Like the people that they have to answer to are the voters. And the idea is that the voters are supposed to take a look at people that are dishonest actors in politics that are not following the rules and vote them out. They're supposed to kick up the stink about this. But like I said before, like this is a nation that's so divided. It doesn't matter. People have their party lines already, and they're going to fall in line with them, regardless of what the evidence you can provide showing that they're being dishonest in the tactics that they use.
All right, so we have Isandering, who has said that he would like to, I saw him in the live chat, who would like to come in, and we value his opinion. So Isandering, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit you up with a link on the Discord, and if you hit that, you should be able to come in, and you shouldn't have any difficulties. If now is not a good time, no worries. But I'm going to send you that link in just a minute on the Discord, so you can come in, because Isandering is a conservative. We like him anyway. And he's a very good guy. He's a very smart guy. So we will, Isandering, I will be sending you a link as soon as, actually, if you could also just tag me in the Discord, that may make things a little easier. But at any rate, so okay, so they have basically 3 options as far as I see it. They can start immediately pushing for a new justice to replace her. It's going to be a huge. I mean, this is going to start just a huge, protracted, very ugly process. So we now have a brand new news cycle to look forward to. They can start that right now. They can say that now this will either help or hurt their political careers. I think they'd be willing to. They may lose the Senate as it is. I think they'd be willing to lose the Senate if it means packing the court and getting one more justice on there. But I don't know that Mitch McConnell really necessarily wants to lose his seat. And there are a lot of there's Murkowski, there's what's her name? There's a lot of the moderates who are sort of in the middle are in very precarious situations. So do they do that fight now, or do they say, you know what, we'll wait until after the elections? If it looks like Trump has won again, they can take their time with it. If it looks like he hasn't, they have 2 months to push it through before before Biden would come into office. So they could go for it now. They could wait, or they could actually, well, the second one is sort of to split the difference. They could sit there and do what they said last time, which is just wait for the next president anyway, because that's what they're supposed to do. But they're not going to do that. So, what do you think they're going to do, and what do you think the consequences might be?
Well, I think this is a good diversion for Republican voters, even like the people that are going into this this election cycle now. It's close, okay, and it's close because there's that Trump has some wavering support that he didn't have back in 2016. But the hardline Republicans, the never Trumpers, the people that still want to stick to the traditional Republican values, and but just don't they don't want a presidency with Trump. They might be swayed to, okay, we don't like Trump, but this is necessary for us to essentially pack the court again.
Yep.
Because now there's a lot of policies, a lot of things that the Republicans do with that type of the grip on the Supreme Court. So and approaching from that, if this becomes the issue, like I said, you're going to be rallying a lot more people that a lot of Republicans that might have been never Trumpers, just to get this. And that's dangerous because it distracts from all the other things that Trump's done.
Yes.
And this is also the problem just with the news cycle in general, is that this will become the focus of this election year. And unfortunately, it's a focus that is going to garner more support for Republicans than not.
All right. Zandering has just joined us. His camera seems to have gone out, but I did hear him. So Zandering, are you there?
I am here.
All right, perfect.
Sorry, it's dark in here. It's
right.
dark, and
No
I don't want to turn all my lights on because I'm in a truck stop, and then everybody stares at you because you got your lights on. And they're wondering, well, what is that guy doing? It looks like he's talking to himself.
No worries. I'll put the.
I don't want to be the truck stop. I don't want to be the truck stop entertainment.
So I want to hit two things before we get your opinion. One, right now, Trump has now floated already for the vacancy. He has a list. He's added 20 names to an already 25 potential list for the Supreme Court vacancy, including Republican Senator Tom Cruise, Tom Cotton, and Josh Hawley. Nobody in the history of the United States has ever said Ted Cruz, and qualified for the Supreme Court in the same sentence. Anyways, it looks like these are all political picks. He's doing it just to try to establish his bona fides with the right that has been getting upset with him. This is going to detract, I think, from his utter catastrophic failure in handling the COVID crisis. We currently have, by an order of magnitude, related to, I think, our second closest in terms of the disproportionate amount of deaths to actual cases we've had in the United States. We're dying much faster in the U.S. than in any other country we have now. I think I'm going to check the numbers in a sec, but I think it's about 40% of all the COVID deaths are in the U.S. and yet we've had roughly 20% of the cases. So that's just utterly stunning. But the other thing that this is burying is he has now announced that the U.S. is in the surge of another crisis. It is not COVID-19. It is a crisis of ideological position and radical history education. He has proposed a new project. I guess it's, what is this, the 1619 Project, which reframes the nation's founding as the, let's see here. So he is, basically he wants to start a patriotic education in the school system. He's going to start educating students with an accompanying curriculum, teaching them about this country's spectacular history. He has attacked authors like Howard Zinn, who wrote A People's History of the United States. Now, that book is often cited as being the view of the U.S. history from the losing side. The winners always get to write history. But in People's History of the United States, he wrote history from the perspective of the Native Americans, history from the perspective of various groups that in one way or another were marginalized or destroyed by the United States. The Mexicans when in the New Mexico War. Now, one of the interesting things, so for example, Howard Zinn had a number of claims, including he was the first to popularize just how horrible Christopher Columbus was, who was guilty of acts of genocide, murder, slavery, rape. This is all him. And when people said this isn't true of Christopher Columbus, he showed from Christopher Columbus's own journal admissions to doing all of this. He thought it was okay. He thought it was fine. That's why he lost all his titles. He lost all his money. He lost everything and was sent home in shame on his third trip. He managed to get out of jail and go for a fourth one, but he lost the title of Admiral of the Sea. He lost everything that he was supposed to have gotten by. He was a horrific human being. Trump has now said that book is, quote, toxic propaganda. It's factual. Again, it's got his own journal in it. But so I think we're going to not talk about that. But you had said, Saka, about these other things that this is detracting from that he's doing right now, and this is one of them. He is now going to try to get any kind of critical analysis of U.S. history essentially thrown out. So. Ms. Andring, welcome. What are your thoughts on what is going on and what we've been talking? Actually, before I do that, we have a super chat from Jake. Jake, thank you so much for that super chat. We really appreciate it. This is once again probably going to be demonetized, so it is super chats that how we do this, and we try to be here for everybody. Truck Stop Entertainment, let's not go. There's something about Mary here. Okay, welcome to the show, Ms. Andring. So,
why, thank you for having me on. Especially when I was sitting here going, I really don't want to type on my tablet. I hate typing on my tablet.
So let's see. So what have we got, Andrew? What are your thoughts on? Let's start with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and what the Republicans are likely to do with that. What are the consequences of that? And then let's talk about some of these other things that really are newsworthy and just hit.
I don't think that it surprises anybody that she passed away. Many people have been speculating that she's been in very poor health for many years now. So, I mean, it's not surprising. I feel a bit ashamed that people just throw the amazing things that she has done. I don't agree with a lot of the things that she's done, but she's still an amazing woman. And everything's been turned political, which is my little mini rant that I want to get off my chest, that I hate the fact that the Supreme Court has been perverted so much that it's now become a political entity. We now are looking for conservative judges or liberal judges that are going to uphold whatever views you have, and that's not what the Supreme Court was ever intended to be. The Supreme Court was intended to look at the law and say, is this constitutional, is this not constitutional, anytime a law was challenged. And it should be pretty clear what the law is. It's written down. We have context. We know what the words meant when they were used. That's a very important distinction because word uses change over time, and it's very important. I mean, like well-regulated militia, what did that mean when it was written versus what it would mean today? I don't see that I mean, obviously the law is very complicated, and it's become so because people like to find loopholes or poke holes in what something's been written in plain English or plain text that anybody can understand. You can run circles around it with trying to get super technical about it, which is why we end up with legalese today. But the entire institution is now just another political arm of the government, and it was never intended to be that. And it's a very large shame on all of us that we've allowed the courts to become that. So it irritates me anytime we get nominations for the Supreme Court. It shouldn't matter what president is sitting in the office. unless you end up with somebody like Trump, who is, I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't like him. I was willing to take a chance on him to get something different. He's turned out horrible, and I want somebody else. I'm going to end up voting. I didn't vote for him last time. I won't vote for him this time, but I certainly don't like Biden either. So I'm probably going to end up voting for the, I just forgot, the Libertarian Party. I think it's George Jorgensen. So, and I think the Republicans are going to try and push this through because they're so worried about getting, the entire thing with Garland was a political stunt. They didn't want him because he was Obama's nominee, and they thought they had a chance in 2016. They're going to conveniently forget all of their arguments that they made last time, which they just did it to try and save face. I mean, they were going to do it no matter what. Yep. And they were just trying to spin it so that it sounded good to the public. And they're going to conveniently forget that, and they're going to push it through, and Trump's going to put on people. And I didn't see the list of new people, but some of the people that you just named, concern me because I don't think they're qualified to be Supreme Court judges, regardless of what their personal ideology is. I mean, I hate the fact that, you should be able to look at the law and say, okay, does this new law violate something that has been written before, especially the Constitution? That's mostly what they're supposed to be for, is federal law. I mean, the states can make a lot of their own laws. And the Supreme Court really shouldn't be able to say much about it unless it blatantly violates, the individual rights guaranteed by our Constitution. So, yeah, it irritates me when this comes up because we should have good, qualified people, whether you have Gorsuch or whether you have Garland or I forget the other guy that got thrown in there because he kind of went through without much hoopla.
Oh yeah. Well, the Ted Cruz. I literally would vote for Tom Cruise over Ted Cruz. That's not a joke.
I'm not so sure. I mean, he's a Scientologist. He's kind of a creepy guy.
He is, but I trust that he wouldn't do things out of political motivation and to try to do a good job. He's creepy, he's strange, he's weird, but he's not going to sit there and hose a whole bunch of people over just for political reasons. Ted Cruz totally would. But
that is true. There's some things about Ted Cruz that I like, and then there's some things that are like, holy crap, I can't believe that just came out of your mouth. It's like, come on, we don't live in the 1800s anymore. We actually live in the 2000s.
All right, so Saka, what were you going to say?
Well, I think that what Sandrin's bringing up there is actually a great point, and that the one of the main reasons why the Supreme Court gets used as such a political tool is because it's actually it is effective, and its role is pretty clear. That it's not supposed to be making new laws. It's supposed to be interpreting the laws in light of the Constitution. The problem is that you're always going to have that kind of jaded lens to it, and the reason why it gets so political is because, in my opinion, it's lifetime appointments. That if you're going to have you're going to have somebody that's serving for life, you want to get a maximized amount of time that you're going to have people that are going to be siding with your political party. It becomes a tool because of that. This is one of those things that I think could be resolved by, by having limited terms inside of the Supreme Court. And Ginsburg is an interesting example of this because remember she passed at 87. I believe it was 87.
I think it was 86, but yeah.
That's far too long. For someone to be in that position. And if they actually had legitimate concerns over and she obviously was had some political motivations, and you see the way that she's dead speaking Trump, is that she should have retired during Obama's time as president.
Yeah.
That's when she should have. They shouldn't risking it to this day, and it shouldn't be, but it shouldn't even be considered a risk. A Supreme Court justice should be believe that they're going to be, replaced by somebody of, the same type of, moral character as them. That they're going to uphold the Constitution regardless of what their political alliances are. But unfortunately, that's just not the case.
All right. So, well, no, I think that's true. And we have a series on civics. We have on Landon Knoll, and we discuss civics. We did discuss the Supreme Court and the House and the whys of them being able to stay so long, but it really wasn't intended to be this kind of appointment. So, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, that can be said about, 2/3 of our government today. It wasn't intended to be this way. I mean, the Senate wasn't intended to be this way. I don't even understand why we still have a damn Senate. I mean, it doesn't serve the purpose that it originally was founded for, and that was to represent the individual states as a unit. And now you have people crying about not having proper representation because each state has 2 senators. Well, why does Wyoming get 2 senators and California only get 2 senators? That's not representing the people. And I have to grit my teeth because it's like, no, that's not what the Senate was there for. Each of the states was supposed to be equal amongst the states. So no one state was more important than the other, regardless of their population. And that was what the Senate was supposed to be. The individual states were supposed to appoint their senators. That got changed. They actually passed a constitutional amendment to change it so that senators would be popularly elected, essentially turning it into a longer version of the House of Representatives. So, 2/3 of our government has ended that way. I have been in favor of set terms, say like a 10-year term for the Supreme Court, and then that's it, you're done. You get one. There's no running for re-election. You do what you do, and then you're done. I don't like the trying to get a reappointment because then you're pandering towards whoever's going to be trying to reappoint you. You have one term, one set term, and then you're done. And not only that, but it also keeps the court more relevant to the things that are going on today.
Well, and that also, I mean, that was the whole idea, was to make them not beholden to anybody. They could interpret the law without having to worry about re-election, without having to worry about the political consequences. That's why they had the lifetime appointments in the first place. But the Senate also has essentially become a lifetime appointment because you run and then you just keep running and running, and you can certainly hold it forever. And the goal was that it was supposed to be held for just a period of time and by a wide variety of people. So anybody might do civil service for a couple of years, be in the Senate for a couple of years, and then go back to their regular job. Not that it was supposed to be a job for life for anybody to take. And I think I do see some positive benefits of that, but on the whole, yeah, that's a problem. Hold on a sec. Jake 4D, once again, thank you very much, Jake. We appreciate it. $5. The court is always going to be creating new law precedent because society and technology keeps evolving. You don't vote for every potential digital crime. So I think he's saying, there's always going to be, you're always going to be having to create new precedents because the technologies and, the founding fathers certainly weren't able to predict everything. They weren't able to put everything into the Constitution, and we get, is a howitzer an arm in the terms of the Constitution? Somebody has to decide that. Our tactical nuclear weapons arms, that gets decided ultimately, presumably, by the Supreme Court. His new commission, it's actually called the 1776 Commission. This he announced 8 hours ago, I think maybe a little more than that, closer to 12 hours ago, where he said that this commission is going to look at making education more patriotic in the United States. He is basing it off of most of the education. The book, he had said that he was going to use, I forget what the book is. Let's see, Land of Hope, An Invitation to the Great American Society by Wilford M. McClay. He is a University of Oklahoma historian. And the National Review has said that this is an extraordinary act of patriotism and that we should actually have a class on patriotism in the American education system. However, Georgetown
Yeah, because that's not indoctrination at all.
Yeah, that's kind of like that. Yeah. And that's essentially what Michael Kazin he's a history professor of Georgetown University, said that that previous book and the education that they're talking about ignores most of the social movements in the U.S. and doesn't give proper credence to the struggle of minorities. And he said that it's a silent treatment for the long struggles for blacks trying to get freedom in the United States. Yeah, that's pretty scary. Now that's going to go under the radar because So have either of you heard of the 1776 commission that was it's news as of 8 hours ago. It happens to dovetail into this because I think it was going to be a very big thing to cover, maybe in a news update or something. But now with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think this is going to be lost, and this is scary. I'm to promote patriotic
Pot,
education.
meat, kettle.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, he's doing the exact thing he's claiming that others are doing, that the left is doing, and he's going to just do it in the other way. I had not heard about that, but in my defense, I have made 4 deliveries today, so I was a little bit busy driving.
Well, and
but yeah, that's concerning.
Yeah, Saka, did you hear about this? Did you know that this was happening?
Yeah, it's. I caught the some of the notes on this one earlier. This idea that of course, like in a culture where it all becomes that the goal seems to be to divide the nation as much as possible. So let's just keep on going that route. Presidency. That it's one thing to be like, okay, well, we have to enact. It would be good to bring back some American history to school or whatever. I'm not sure what kind of American history is being taught now. I assume it's I guess it's not American enough. But the idea is that this is being launched as a platform targeting his political opponents. Well, with the idea that the Democrats have at this point in time somehow defiled and destroyed or distorted the history of America, with the way that they demonize founding fathers as slave owners, and that really they should just be raised up as these virtues of just brilliance and amazing because they created this perfect American experiment. Like that notion right there is just absolutely ridiculous to me. Where the idea that that patriotism in the mind of Trump somehow entails not acknowledging any mistake that you've made as a nation, which is weird. It's just like that you can't be critical of your role. You can't grow from it. Or even acknowledge that bad things happened in the past that was the result of the American government. Instead, it's just got to be just all patriotism all the time, and we have to glorify even the events that happened that were terrible.
Well, and that's actually very bad for the country as a whole, anyway, because I think it's bad on a lot of fronts. But the one I'm going to approach just to start with right now is it encourages a country to not have realistic expectations for itself and to not have realistic expectations of who they are. And then when they engage with other countries, they sit there and say, well, your country's had problems, but ours doesn't. And they engage dishonestly, whether they intend to or not. They don't even realize it's dishonestly, but they say, well, the only country that's ever committed genocide, we all know, is Germany. That's it. They're the only ones. And we're gonna pretend like there aren't human beings in the U.S. that have done these kinds of similar things, and it makes it very difficult.
Yeah, we'll forget about the Japanese Americans. We'll forget about the Native Americans. We'll forget about many of the Mexicans. We'll just conveniently, and not to mention black slaves. We'll just forget about all of those.
Well, and then when you look at what's happening on our southern border right now, especially with how we're treating children down there, and all of a sudden we don't process the reality of that because we're the U.S. We're not capable of making mistakes, and the way I know that is because I've read our history. That mindset makes us overreach. It makes us think we can do no wrong. It makes us think we should go around bombing any old country because we don't make mistakes. That's just not what we do. That's not in our nature. That encourages us to make far, far more serious, more deadly mistakes far more often. It's a very, very bad idea. So I have many objections, but that's one of them. Yeah.
It breeds an entire culture of the end justifying the means.
Yes.
Where it's okay, sure, there's these slight blemishes on our history, but we wouldn't be where we are now without that. And where are we now? We're the greatest damn nation in the world, right?
Yep.
And that's the attitude that they have. And but like a lot of countries deal with this. Canada has dealt with this for years. That there's there was a Métis well, I'm not sure, just the revolutionary, I guess, I don't know, that opposed the Canadian government for their treatment of First Nation and Métis people, a guy named Louis Riel. And in the time that I've been alive, he's gone from being a traitor to Canada to a hero, and to like this fuzzy area kind of in between where we have to acknowledge that we as a country bred him, that he wouldn't have been able to, his actions were the result of the way that, as a nation, we actually were treating Indigenous people up here. And so, yeah, we can call him a traitor. We can call him, we caught him and executed him. We did all these terrible things. But that wouldn't have been, something that happened if it wasn't for, like I said, the mistakes that our country made. And so coming to terms with those things and having to change, and not change, but acknowledge the dark parts of our history, allow us to, move forward, even in this time now where we have terrible relations with Indigenous people in Canada, that it allows us to move forward and try to rebuild this stuff because we acknowledge the mistakes of the past. And this entire movement for something like this, for the 1776 commission, there is a way to not hold yourselves accountable for the stuff that happened. And in the type of like climate now where, the ideas of things like systemic racism that exist, not just on like the level from like law enforcement, but like deeply within like the political systems of the US, is just on the forefront of everyone's mind to go out there now and say that, America has done no wrong, that to get us to the, to get you guys to that stage is a spit in the face to a huge percentage of your population.
Well, and a huge number of people, who sacrificed in order to get, the sacrifices of blacks to get the U.S. where it is, sacrifices for which they were not compensated and they had no choice in the matter. And that's a huge part of who we are too. And I think when you take a look at the founding fathers who owned slaves or had sex with their slaves, you do have to take stuff like that in context. There's a context to it, and there's a difference between doing that kind of thing 200 or 300 years ago and doing it today, as probably not politically correct as it is. I think they're both wrong. But I've said this argument before because our values do change over time. And that's a good thing because I think in general it curves towards having better values. But the slave owner who teaches his slaves to read, gives his slaves proper health care, good place to sleep, nice good food, takes care of them, is a saint 300 years ago. He's a saint 300 years ago. Today he's a monster. Same guy. So I think
we're very fond of judging we're very fond of judging historical figures by with the convenience of today.
Yeah, with the back,
not realizing
hindsight. Yeah.
Well, yeah. We have everything good. Yeah, we have everything good. We've realized that hey, we probably shouldn't own other human beings. That's kind of a bad thing. And then we look back and you lambaste somebody like Jefferson because he was a slave owner. And yet he took incredibly good care of his slaves. And you really need to go back and see what conditions were present at the time. He is a product of his generation. So, we can recognize now we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't emulate that part of him, but we shouldn't degrade the parts that were truly great.
And I think we can. I think we can accept the bad and say and acknowledge it and say, look, this is what we're talking about, but put that into that context and say, this is the context, this is who they were, these are the faults, these are the things they did well, and try to look at it. But I think it's a teaching moment. I think it's a teachable moment to say, these are the things that they did, that we look at and we say, oh my God, are horrible. but here's how and why it happened in that context. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Yeah, when I went to high school, I had exactly 2 semesters of history. History wasn't particularly a favorite subject of mine. I had 1 semester of world history, 1 semester of American history. As I've gotten older, I think that is incredibly inaccurate, or inadequate, not inaccurate. Well, it could be inaccurate as well. I think that you should be teaching history as one of those very fundamental core classes that everybody should get a lot of, and they should cover many of the great moments, or at least momentous moments of history, and it should be covered in depth. And I actually very much like the idea of teaching it from the losing side as well as from the winning side. I want, of course, I care about what's true, and I want as much information as possible. There's some great things and momentous things that have happened throughout history, and I don't use it in a pejorative. I just meant they were great events. Didn't necessarily lead to great outcomes, and even when they did lead to great outcomes, there was often a cost to that. Very, very consequential effects rippling around the world that were not so great. And they should be, and all those things should be acknowledged. They say, look, on the one hand, we ended up with a nation that went from sea to sea. We have mostly friendly neighbors to the north and south of us. Invading this country is incredibly difficult. And this is what it costs to get here.
Yes.
There was a lot of really bad crap that happened. There was a lot of things that we wouldn't even consider tolerating today. Our country makes bad decisions all the time. It's not like anybody made a rash decision to invade a country and spend 17 or 19 years there now with no particular gain whatsoever. We'd never do something like that.
I don't know what you said. Gee, look at the time.
But just to that point, because somebody brought this up in the outside chat as well. We're kind of talking about this here. Is that this idea that we can kind of look back and judge people? Use our moral measuring stick from today and look back at people in the past, and then we can kind of say, well, oh, hey, you know what? This was a time when a lot of people had slaves, and slavery was just a thing. It was just a thing that happened. Late part of the 1700s, early part of the 1800s. We shouldn't demonize these people. Well, the thing is that there were people that were opposed to slavery. There were great people in those times that were opposed to slavery. This is why I think slavery was abolished in the United Kingdom in the first decade of the 1800s. Yep. 6-7 decades prior to the U.S. Civil War, and and why?
Decades.
Well, because there was 5 decades. Sorry, yeah. Wait, 18 abolished slavery was okay. Slavery was abolished in the U.S. in 1865. Yeah. 63. Okay.
Well, the war started in 1863.
Yeah. So 6 decades. Okay, there's 60 years of countries in Europe, especially in the UK, that recognize slavery as a bad thing. And that wasn't an overnight thing. Those are from great minds that were thinking before that and acknowledged that this was a problem and got rid of it. And so, to say that these people were just it was just the thing at the time. Well, they were actually late to a lot of things. And there were great people at that time that did agree that slavery was wrong. So I don't think that it's fair to look back and be like, well, it's okay because it was just a cultural type thing at that time. No, there was examples of people that actually opposed it then because they recognized it was wrong.
Well, actually, I do want to hear what you have to say, Xander. I want to say one quick thing. I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to start to wrap it up because this is actually just sort of a news update. We're not doing a full show. I'll be in the Discord. I have to go eat because I interrupted sort of a family dinner to be here, but I'll be in the Discord after that. Anyone else who wants to go into the Discord, we can talk about it. I do want to say before I hear Xander on this that I think that cuts two ways, though. I'm not saying it's okay because I still think it's bad, but I think it's not as bad as if it was happening now. And I think that when we see it as if it's happening now, and we're saying there were horrible, horrible monsters. And I think the problem is it comes with qualifiers. And another example of that is you're right. There are people who stood up and said, great people, like you said, who said slavery is wrong and we have to oppose it. And they were great people. But if I stand up today and say, I oppose slavery, I'm not a great person. Saying that today does not make me a great person because this is a different culture. And you were a great person to say it then, not so much now. And slavery is still just as bad. It hasn't changed whether it's good or bad. But my view on what makes a person great has changed for the same reasons as the horrible. And I don't think it exculpates them completely. I'm not trying to say that it was okay. It wasn't, and it needs to be talked about, and it can't be whitewashed. But I do think we tend to say, oh, we still tend to apply our values 100% to that, and I don't think you can do that. And I'm sure Sokka's going to have an answer. So let's Xandering Sokka, and then let's try to wrap this up.
You essentially just said what I was going to. I mean, you need to apply context to history.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Sokka,
I'll just finish up just back to the Ginsburg thing. Yeah, the Ginsburg thing here, because that's what we were kind of talking about before. Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that unfortunately with the passing of Ginsburg today, that if Trump does win the election for a second term, this is probably going to be the catalyst that pushes it over the edge for him.
Well, and this is
it's going to be interesting.
Please.
I said it's going to be interesting if he somehow does win the re-election, because this probably won't be the last Supreme Court justice he'll get to nominate. Or I should rephrase. There's a high chance that it won't be the last one.
Yeah.
And we could be looking at an unprecedented court to the point that, they may consider expanding the number of seats on the Supreme Court again. And this exact situation is what caused, them to expand the Supreme Court the first time they did it. So you get one political party that's been able to pack the court with pretty much all of their own nominees. The other political party gets in power and they decide they're going to add another 3 seats to the Supreme Court, which Congress can do. So it will be interesting, and the Chinese proverb of interesting times.
I'm actually a little, because I'm genuinely starting to get scared, and I'm going to explain why. I'm going to drop a link in the live chat. So I wrote an article. It was called Demagogue, A Plausible Path to the End of the American Republic. Published it November 21st, 2016. Cited examples and cited how and why Donald Trump could actually end the U.S. Republic, how he could, through gerrymandering and sort of a perpetual domination of the Senate, and then by packing the Supreme Court, actually end up staying longer, which he's already said. Trump, about 3 days ago, came out and said that he believes he is entitled to another term after this one. Let me say again, Donald Trump has said that if he wins this next one, he is entitled to another term after that, in violation of the U.S. Constitution. So the question is, could he do it? Now, most of us would say, of course not. But then again, he's done so much now that people thought he couldn't do. So the link I'm dropping is plausible. And yes.
That being said, remember that it's the role of the Supreme Court doesn't just lie within, the interpretation of the Constitution and civil rights of the people. It also works as the tool to limit the power of the presidency, to hold them in check.
Here's actually what I'm going to do. Okay, let me interrupt real quick. I was going to wrap this up, but we have Nate the lawyer in here, and he knows more about this than I do by quite a lot. And he was streaming earlier. We should actually probably have a link to his stream, because he and Uncivil Law, who is also a friend of the show, but Nate in particular is very supportive and been very helpful, and is always always knows what he's talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get a link for Nate, and we will continue the show. So instead of just wrapping it up, because he's worth continuing it for. So I'm going to please finish that off. Nate, I will be sending you a link as soon as I can generate one. So Saka, please continue.
No, that was it. Is the Supreme Court is supposed to check the presidential branch of the government and making sure that they fall in line with where their power is actually limited to. Okay, so like you can't overstep as president. They go all aspects of the government are supposed to kind of hold each other in check. But you start once you control everything, especially because this is a politically fueled position now, like we've already kind of discussed. Yeah, this actually leads to a really good question about whether or not their ability to limit the power of the president would actually be used.
And this is the exact reason that the founders included the Second Amendment, the Constitution.
Oh dear God! We have a technical.
I'm sorry. I had to put that in there. I had to say it.
Okay, so I guess Nate, but he said we, so I'm wondering if somebody else is going to come in, but I've gotten Nate the link. Nate, that link is in Discord, so if he catches up on Discord, and I'll try to let him know by other things. But we're running a little tight on space, so I think we're going to have to kick a Second Amendment loving ass out. We're going to see who that's going to be.
I just want to point out, Andrew, that I agree with you completely.
Thank you. So where's the mute button? I'm still getting used to this interface. I think a lot of people are going to get muted pretty soon. And
I had to put that in there. Yeah, it is concerning when you start running into that.
Okay. So
hello.
I would like to introduce. Hello, Nate. How are you?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, listen, Uncivil Law wanted to join too. We were like, hey, let's get some lawyers on this stream, man.
We need him. Let me get a link for him. I'm going to put it up because nobody else has their camera on. So let it be so that everybody here can see that face of yours, see the mug, and know who we're talking to. So I'm going to get your camera up, and then as soon as I'm done with that, I will. Let's see.
Hold on, let me tweet this out that we're here. All right, we're on. We're good. Can you hear me?
We're good. Yes, I can hear you just fine. I'll send him that link in Discord. So if he's just on Discord, I'll get him the link. I just want to get your camera up. There you go. You're on camera 3. So I just got to maneuver a few things around here. So we'll put you up in the guest window.
Yeah, and I make that Second Amendment crack as just kind of a cheeky. I got to get my own little
certain
pet
people.
peeve in there.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a terrifying proposition, by the way. I mean, I don't ever want to get into a situation where that's even seriously being talked about by rational people. I mean, it's being talked about by right-wing crackpots left and right, but a true American Civil War, that actually involves shooting at people would be a horrible, horrible thing.
So what I'd like to do is
people seem to glorify it.
What I'd like to do is get Nate up to date on a little bit about what we talked about and see what he wants to get his voice on this. I am getting Uncivil Law his link because he's always welcome here, and he's going to have a different voice too, but he knows what he's doing. And I'll update the links as soon as I can so that the links are in the description. But so here's what we got. As you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has passed. So we're talking about sort of what the effect is. I would love to do a show on her legacy because she was the second woman to the Supreme Court, and she was different. So and we may certainly touch on that now. But that's what we've been talking about is what are the Republicans going to do? How's Trump going to handle this? We're also been talking about, I don't know if you heard, Nate, about 8 hours ago, the 1776 commission made by Trump, which is going to create a new class of education. It's going to be patriotism education in American schools, teaching Americans about being patriots, about how our history is. And he's talked about the history that he was going to draw from, and it was a very whitewashed version of history. And we gave some quotes of what he said about the toxic elements on the left that have been destroying American culture and history. And he wants to now force through the American education system the teaching of a non-revisionist, by his language, version of history. So that came through, and then he's talked about he's considering nominating Ted Cruz, a few others. So if you want to talk a little bit about your views on what's going on, let me see if I can get on civil law in here.
All right. First, I think the Republican Party got a problem because you held up. Remember 4 years ago when Scalia died, unfortunately, and he died in like February, and people were saying that you got to hold the seat to the election. Now you got somebody dying 2 months before the election, and you're not going to hold that seat. I don't know how you don't get over the hypocrisy. I just don't know how you don't get over the hypocrisy. And I think it's a calling card to the Democrats to come out and vote, right? I think if you fill this seat, I think people like Susan Collins are gone, right? Because Susan Collins is a swing vote. I think all those swing vote Republicans are lost. So at this point in time, it's, do you lose the Senate? Do you risk losing the Senate for the Supreme Court seat? Which is more valuable? And I would say I think the Supreme Court seat was more valuable. It gives you more time, it gets you more ruling, and it solidifies the court for a generation, right? Because now you got, instead of a 5-4 court, you got a 6-3 court, right?
Yep.
So I just don't know. But I don't know if, one of the problems is, I don't know if you have enough votes in the Senate to get a pick through. Because is Susan Collins going to vote for a very right-wing person when she knows she's in a fight of her life for her seat? She's down by a couple of points. Are you going to get, are you going to get the guy from Colorado? Are you going to get the person from Arizona? All these are in swing states, very heavily Democratic. You have Republican senators, and then let's not forget about Georgia, which now all of a sudden has become a swing state. You got two senators in Georgia that are up for election too. So I think you have a problem. I think there's a problem, and I also think you have a problem with what uncivil law was talking about earlier, court packing. You have a court packing problem.
Yes.
Where if you do this and you take that third, because this would be Trump's third pick in 4 years. That's like almost a record, because Obama had 2 in 8 years, and so did Bush before him. So if you get 3 picks in 4 years, and you get a Democratic Senate, I don't know if they give him another pick. I don't know if they give him another pick. And I can also see a scenario where the Democrats say, "Fuck it, let's just add 2 seats to the Supreme Court." It's been that way for over 100 years, right? We got more people. Let's add 2 more seats. And if you got the trifecta, presidency, Senate, and House, you got your 2 seats.
On civil law, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, I'm more in the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I thought she was a wonderful person, and she's by no means my least favorite person on the court. So I thought she was a wonderful contributor, and she did as much, if not arguably more, depending on your frame, as an advocate before she became a judge. She did some wonderful work on equal protection and gender issues, and her legacy there is as rich as her legacy as a judge. On the pragmatic level, I'm very concerned with what happens next. I consider myself a conservative, and one of the things I want to do is conserve. And one of the things I want to conserve is the court as a legal, not political branch. And I feel that has been already sufficiently eroded, and I don't want to become eroded more. So while in the short term, I might want like Amy Coney Barrett, who is probably the most logical person to be named, Court of Appeals judge. She's probably the top pick, very conservative person. But I'm very concerned with the long term. I'm very concerned with what it does to the court. I'm very concerned with what it does to court packing. If the Democrats eventually add 2 more seats, the Republicans eventually add 2 more seats, where does that end? That kind of thing. So I'm very concerned with what a nomination might do at this point. And then on just the politics level, it's like, what does it do for turnout? Trump has presumably the option to nominate or not nominate. What does either of those options do for Democrat or Republican turnout? How does that impact how that influences things? If they wait till after the election, how does it influence things? If they wait till after the Senate comes into session, which is January 3rd, and try to cram a new person in 17 days, with a new Senate, if it remains Republican, how does that work? How does it work if Trump is reappointed? How does it work if he's defeated? What does it mean for long-term stability of the Republic? What does it mean for political polarization? What does it mean for our ability to work together as a country? So, my immediate thoughts are ones of uncertainty, which goes to my conservative mindset. It's like, I want to protect institutions, and my desire for another conservative seat on the court is trumped by my desire for the Constitution. I desire to maintain the federalism balance, desire to maintain separation of powers, desire to maintain the separation between the legal and the political. And so my thoughts are consumed by the long term right now, what the long term implications are on this. And so I'm in a very sort of depressed mood because I feel that the outcomes that end well are not as prominent as the ones that end poorly. That's what I have to say about that.
If you could personally advise Donald Trump at this point, what would you advise? And then I want to hear from Soutter. What would you tell him if you were an advisor? What would you tell him to do, knowing what he probably wants to do? What would you say to him?
Well, I don't know that I could necessarily fully answer that question because I've been struck with the news like everyone else is, and trying to figure out the full implications of this are very, very difficult. So my immediate thought would be the best possible scenario for Trump is that he wins re-election and the Republicans maintain the Senate. That would be the best possible scenario, because then the election is November 3rd. So if Trump maintains the election, wins the presidency, and the Senate remains Republican, then he can appoint somebody on November 4th. And I don't think anyone can challenge the legitimacy of that. Mm-hmm. If anything other than that scenario happens, though, it becomes problematic. There's, one of the things that, again, appeals to me as a conservative is trying to maintain a consistent philosophy. And the Republicans said, well, we can't appoint someone in an election year. And that was in February, as Nate pointed out earlier, when Scalia died, that happened. And so, okay, they want to undo that. So how do they justify this? This is different because of, and I can't think of any justification that really works. So, if they appoint someone right now, I think the Democrats would be justly irritated and outraged because the Republicans would be going against what they said were their principles. So how principled can we be? And when they wanted to create new seats, we would have no rebuttal, because how many seats are on the Supreme Court is just an operation of statute. There's a statute. I don't think it's been changed since 1860. It's been 6 seats for quite a long time. So how many seats there should be is just a statute. And if the Democrats want to change that at some point after the Republicans, take a seat corrupting their own philosophy, what rebuttal do we have? We have no consistent philosophy. So it just seems craven. My ultimate loyalties are to the Constitution and to the structure of the Constitution, and to the separation of powers, and to the separation of the legal and political branches, to federalism and things like that. So as much as I might want a new seat, I'm concerned about the long-term structure of the Constitution. If it meant giving up the seat to save the Republic, I would have to do it, because that's where my concerns are. So my immediate advice would be to wait. That would be my immediate advice is just to wait and not naming anybody. There is one sort of judo move that I don't know is attractive to anybody, but there is one move that solves a lot of problems, and that would be for Trump to appoint Merrick Garland, which was Obama's
Oh, yeah. That's
a masterstroke.
That's brilliant. Yeah. That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Because it solves a lot of problems.
So, okay, so just a quick update. We have updated. So we have on in the center window, Uncivil Law. The link to his channel is now in our description. We've also, we're going to drop that in the live chat. Nate the lawyer, also his description. He is somebody mentioned ProLib does look a little different today. Nate the lawyer is in ProLib's usual window. I haven't gotten that updated yet, but at any rate, we also just our usual rules are in place here, which is we love strong debate. We love people teaching us new things and telling us stuff that we didn't know before. But on the flip side, we don't have if you think certain facts are wrong, you need to prove it, and so we don't have we tolerate discussion of all kinds. But what we don't do is tolerate the dissemination of things that we know factually are not accurate, and the mods right now are actually handling it perfectly well. They didn't need my shout out, I think, on that, but I did want to reiterate, I think everybody who's been on the channel, they know that if you're going to say something really factually inaccurate, either you back it up or you're going to have to stop. So I know Saka wanted to say something. Saka, what were you going to say?
Well, I think that maybe it's just that I've just become just hyper cynical over the last few years. But the idea, first off, that there's a certain amount of integrity that has to be maintained by people like Mitch McConnell, by standing by what he said, 4 years ago, and what he has, what's ahead of them now. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in, them being able to hold on to that. The state of the divide that you see in the U.S. right now is such that, if this becomes this will become a hot topic, obviously, in this election year, that it almost justifies, we're talking about this with the 1776 commission earlier, where the end always justifies the means, in some people's minds. So, okay, we did say this 4 years ago, but, this is an opportunity now to really kind of stack the Supreme Court in favor of the Republicans. And to think that there would be some type of integrity being held by, the people in the Senate, or the Republicans in the Senate, to not take advantage of this and just put on the political blinders and just deny it, and have the followers of those people deny it as well, is I think that's just kind of a pipe dream. Like, we see this too often, how many people turn a blind eye to things that are just absolutely abhorrent that have been put into place. And so I don't think that this rides in this position of integrity where you could actually potentially damage some followers. But I don't know. I mean, that's that, like I said, that might just be the cynical viewpoint that I hold right now.
Well, I also would like to point out that you've got to look at what Trump's base followers are going to want, and they're absolutely going to want him to nominate and try and get their judge through. I don't think they're particularly going to be concerned about losing the Senate. They're not even going to be thinking about the fact that it is possible to expand the number of seats on the court, as I mentioned earlier, and Nate and Uncivil Law both pointed out that they can absolutely do that as well. But they're not going to be thinking about quite that much. They're going to be looking at the election going, hey, there is a possibility that our guy Trump is going to lose, and so we want to take the guaranteed, more or less in their view, their guaranteed win of getting another very conservative person on the courts, not really thinking through all of the potential consequences of what it would take to do that, and the very fact that they're going to be flipping themselves 100% from what they said for Garland. So, I think that they will nominate, and they will try and push somebody through for that reason, because I think it'll hurt him in his base if he doesn't, and if he waits, people are going to be, his base is going to be very upset about that. And so I don't think that he's proven himself to be a particularly long-term thinker about strategically, at least. So that's what I see happening, and then we're going to see what happens after that.
I want to add this though. You do have the overarching theme of what's best for the party, but you do have senators who are individuals. So what's best for me, right? Susan Collins, who's in a Democratic state, who's a Republican senator, this is what's best for me versus what's best for the party. What's best for her may not be voting for this candidate, right? Because those Democrats in that state, if they come out against her, she loses her job. You know, so does the one in Arizona, and so does the one in Colorado. Those are heavily Democratic states. Just now, in the past hour, Democrats went from raising something like $1,000 an hour to $150,000 an hour after Mitch McConnell said that they will vote on this seat. That is a hell of a lot of money to be making per hour on the announcement that we are going to vote on this seat. Now that money is going to those races. So I think as an institution, as a party, it makes sense. Let's get this seat in. Let's take the sure win and damn the election, right? That's an unsure thing. But as an individual, that's a lot of soul searching, because if you want to have that vote before the election, you have to take that vote and then go to the polls, and you can be thrown out because of that vote. So I think it really is now between my personal interest of wanting to keep my job and the interest of the party and wanting to get this easy win. That's where I think the problem is.
Well, there's, in addition to that, you also have to realize, that's not the only thing going on either, because if Susan Collins, for example, decides she's going to try and stop this, we're going to vote against any nominee presented by Trump, that's also going to, anger the base of the core base of the Conservative Party as well, because they're going to want that shoe-in for the Supreme Court. I mean, they're looking at Roe v. Wade. They're going, hey, one of our biggest platform issues is abortion, and if we can get a 7-3 court, we can overturn Roe v. Wade and outlaw abortion again.
It's on the table in a way that's never been
every single person.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But hold on, but just that one thing. Susan Collins is pro-choice, though. But Susan Collins is pro-choice.
Well,
that's a loss to her. But
it is a loss to her individually. But what I'm saying is that if she tries to hold it up, or any of the other people who are potentially about to lose their jobs, if they vote against it, they're almost guaranteeing. I mean, they're kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If they vote against it, they're going to piss off a lot of Republicans, and they may lose their own base of support. If they vote against it, so they're in a no-win situation, and I think that the individual senators are going to come down to what they think is going to be the best strategy for themselves, and they're just going to take whichever bullet they think is going to be less lethal. So, but I think that, Trump's already mentioned that they are going to nominate, and McConnell's already said that they will consider it. So, they're already showing that they're going to completely ignore what they said, and obviously, and I feel this way about both parties in the federal government.
You were saying on civil law? Okay.
No, I just say this is very distressing to me. Like, if the issue was, for me personally, as a conservative Republican, if the issue was for me losing the presidency and losing the Senate, but gaining the Supreme Court seat, I'd take it, because I think that's a worthy trade. But I'm worried about issues beyond that. I'm worried about the stacking of the court. I think that there needs to be a separation between political issues and legal issues. At least to me, because I'm trained as a lawyer, I think that there's a difference between political and legal, and they should be separated. Congress and the executive are political. The judiciary is a legal branch, and if all I had to give up was the presidency and the Senate, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But what I'm really concerned about is, if we do this, then what is left for us when the Democrats eventually gain all three branches of the political House, Senate, and President, and they want to increase the size of the Supreme Court, because that's a political question, what the size should be. And what argument do we have? We don't have any argument left. And so the short-term win of gaining a seat, first of all, at least in my count, and this is biased, but at least in my count, I don't think there are the votes to overturn Roe versus Wade, even if we get Amy Coney Barrett. Amy would do it. Thomas would do it, but I don't think there are 5 votes. But that's my personal judgment. I don't think there are 5 votes to do it. But we would get more conservative decisions. Second Amendment decisions in particular, I think, are likely. But what is the point as a conservative of a short-term win and a long-term loss? Because again, one of the things, at least for me principally, is trying to conserve things. And one of the things I want to conserve is federalism, separation of powers, all these issues. And so I would hope that someone is trying to factor all that out, because the long-term implications of this are deep for me. And if I had to give up the Supreme Court seat to save the Republic, I'd do it.
I agree with you 100% with what you just said.
You would do it. You would do it for a genuine conservative, though. So not for, like, I mean, would you do it for Ted Cruz? He was on the. I mean, Ted Cruz is on the short list for the Supreme Court.
The issue isn't the conservatism of the person who's appointed. That's not the problem.
Okay.
I don't really worry about that issue. So pick the most blatant conservative you want of all time. That's not my problem. My problem is, if we do that, what are the long-term implications for inflation of the size of the court? Why don't the Democrats make it 11? And why don't the Republicans then make it 13 and 15 and 17? Where does that end? And how does it deal with separation of powers? And once we do that, how do we make the legal branch not political? Because suddenly we've turned it into a political toy. It's already too much. So how do we maintain all
term
that?
limits.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You'd have to put.
Let's let Zandring's been trying to get in. Then I want to hear Saka, and then yeah. So Zandring, you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I agree with what he just said, and those are the same kind of concerns that I have. And the other thing that concerns me is the fact that I don't see, at least from any of the conservative publications or bloggers or vloggers, YouTube people that are on the conservative side, I don't see the intellectual fortitude to look that far ahead. They're too concerned with the narrow short term. Getting another conservative is going to be great, especially for things that I care more about, such as Second Amendment issues. I also agree. I don't believe they'll be able to get Roe v. Wade overthrown. However, that is being floated out there as kind of the holy grail of, if we can just get enough conservatives in the court, we can get this overturned. And it's really put blinders, in my opinion, on a lot of more conservative and farther right-wing people, that they can't step back and look at this and say, this could cause a lot of potential problems and lead to a lot of really bad things, and we may not actually be winning in the end.
All right, Saka.
Well, there's two things I wanted to kind of bring up. One would be like how do you stop this from being a political position? Is, well, I would say that you have to put in term limits. That would probably be the first way. But let's say that they didn't try to push this nomination through. What this is already going to start doing for just the state of the potential outcome of this election is huge as well. Because, okay, if they were to put it on hold, if they were just to do what Mitch McConnell said 4 years ago, and we have to wait till after the election, the support that Trump has lost with the Republicans, like the Never Trumpers, how many of them would go back and vote for a Republican president again, just so that they could have that legitimate shot at putting another person on the Supreme Court? Like that's also a huge implication for what could happen in this election if they didn't do this right away.
All right, well, let's do this. So this has been spectacular, and I appreciate that we had so many people on and so many views. So thank you all for joining us. Zandring, Saka, Nate on civil law. You guys have been great. Thank you. What I'd like to do is this. I will be in the Discord after this. How long depends. I gotta just sort out with the family. If you've gotten to this point in the show, if you've gotten this far along, that means you liked the show. So I hope you will consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It really does help us out. I would like to have everybody here just talk, remind us of who they are and where they can be found, and also give us any last words that you want to say about about this topic or anything going on, and we'll have you guys back too. I also really do. I'd like to have our audience look into the 1776 proposal that came out about 8 hours ago. I find that very disturbing. I would like very much to get on civil law's view on that, but I think we'll have to save that for later. But if you guys want to join us in the Discord afterwards, you can hop in. We're going to be in the after show room. I'll be there. We can keep the discussion going. But until then, let's start with Nate. Please tell us a little bit about who you are, where people can find you, and what your thoughts are on all of this.
My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I am on, well, you just type in Nate the Lawyer to the search bar on YouTube, and you can find me. My final thoughts on this are, I have the same fears that uncivil law has, because the only thing that restrains the political branches is like these gentlemen's agreements, from like blue slips to the filibuster and things of that nature. And I think that restraint is something that's important to our way of life. And I think this move does jeopardize that restraint, because Trump is going to appoint somebody. But if the Senate does confirm a Supreme Court justice so late after what happened last time, and I think it's poetic that both Ginsburg and Scalia, who were the closest of friends on the Supreme Court, died in almost the same identical manner. In a presidential year, right before, the same year as a presidential election. I think it's kind of the irony of life. But I also think that we are at a turning point where, if this does happen the way I think uncivil law and some others think it's going to happen, I think you have a problem, because I do think things like court packing and things are on the table, because they're so easy to do, and they were unheard of just maybe 6 months ago. To pack the court with 2 more justices, now it's like we got to do what we got to do to keep power. And when you have any party thinking that that's the way you have to do it by any means necessary, then we lose what little we have, right? The little republic we have, because again, a lot of this is on personal agreements. We're going to treat each other this way. We're going to restrain ourselves. The court itself has to restrain itself from taking ultimate authority. So I think in that vein, I am concerned. But I do believe in the American spirit, and I do believe in the idea of America. And I don't believe there's going to be any civil war, but I do believe that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is going to change the dynamics of this election in 2 ways. Number one, she's a pop culture icon, right? She is RBG. That was just like Biggie Smalls. Yeah. And as a pop culture icon, if I think her death can get those people marching in the streets into the ballot boxes, I think that's a disaster for the Republican Party, right? I think those people marching in the streets usually don't vote. Usually it's old people who vote. But I think with the COVID pandemic, and people are afraid to go outside, and you have the people who march in the streets who are young, who are left-leaning, that is a recipe for disaster for a Republican Party. And it's a disaster for years to come. And I think the win now could be great, but it could be the best thing that ever happened to the Democratic Party, is that they take this seat. And that's a real possibility. That's a real possibility. And again, thanks, Nick, for having me. But those are my final thoughts. And I hope it doesn't come true, but it seems like it's going to be more likely.
All right. Thank you, Nate. Uncivil law.
So I go by the name Uncivil Law. You can find me by that name, Uncivil Law, on YouTube. And I would encourage you to subscribe to me. I do basically six stories a week, try to do legal analysis on various courts of appeal cases. And I consider myself a conservative and a Republican. And with that in mind, I'd like to first express my condolences to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I had the occasion to meet her once in person. When I was sworn into the U.S. Supreme Court in person. I actually went there, because of the ceremony and all. And you get the opportunity to meet with one justice, and for all I know, they pick straws, lots or something. But I got the opportunity to meet her in person, and I was impressed by her then, and I'm impressed by her now. She was as good an advocate, if not better an advocate in some ways, depending on your frame. Again, as a judge, she's had a storied career. She's done wonderful things. And as Nate noted, she was very good friends with Scalia. They went on safari together. They went overseas together. They went to opera together. So it goes to show that left-leaning people and right-leaning people can, even if they disagree on philosophy, can have a personal relationship, and so that's helpful. I'm concerned about the future. I try to be principled. I try to apply things consistently. I try to look to uniform principles, and I'm concerned about what happens next. I'm concerned about the sanctity of the Supreme Court as a legal branch of government. I'm concerned about how it remains a political... I'm concerned about the politics of the whole thing. I'm concerned about whether Trump nominates someone or not. Both have implications. I will hear nothing but ads about this for the indefinite future. I think everyone knows that, right? You all know what the stories are for the next week on the news, right? You don't need to tune into the news. You know what the stories are on the news for next week. You got that settled, right? You got that down? So if Trump nominates someone or not, how that impacts things, I don't know. But, one of the oaths I took as a lawyer is to the Constitution of the United States, and I'm concerned about its structure. I'm concerned about federalism. I'm concerned about separation of powers. I'm concerned about the difference between political and legal. And, on a purely legal level, I think Amy Coney Barrett would be a better judge for me than Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ms. Barrett would more likely agree with my legal philosophies. But even if I could for sure get her right now, if I knew for a fact I could get her, I'd still be concerned with what happens next. And I think that's one of the things conservatives have to think about is what happens next. We want to conserve things and trying to figure out what the long-term implications are a real issue here. So I'll just end like I started. I'll just end with my condolences because I think she was a liberal lion. I think she was a fantastic thinker. I think she was a fantastic writer. I think her work will live forever, and I'm saddened by her passing.
Thank you very much on civil law. Thank you. Zandering, please. Zandering, we have links already in the description for Nate and on civil law, and we've been dropping links. We won't drop any links for Zandering. He is a right-wing nut job. He is just completely cray-cray. We don't like him, and so you can't reach him anywhere. I don't even want to, but we'll let him talk because we try to play fair. But Zandering, tell us, you're up. What do you want to say here?
I'm the token right-wing nut job. You just bring on so that everybody can secretly laugh at me behind my back.
I wish they could.
Just because you're not going to drop a link for me, I'm going to say, hey, everybody can go to Zandering Person on YouTube and you can find me. I upload no content. If you'd like to see a 19-minute clip of me driving through a blizzard, that's the only thing on my channel. It's the only thing I've ever uploaded, and I just did it to see how it worked. So if you'd like to go and subscribe, I think I have 19 subscribers. You better watch out. I'm coming for your subscribers.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I wish they laughed at you, but the gun discussion we had, I think, was very, very good, and it certainly wasn't. I don't think anybody was laughing at your positions, unfortunately, as hard as I tried. Any last word?
Well, it's because I try to be reasonable, and I don't always succeed, but I do try to be reasonable in my beliefs. And I would say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a very, as I totally butcher that name, was an amazing woman, and I'm sorry to see her go. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have many of the same concerns that uncivil law does. And I worry that our attention spans have been constricted so much that we can't look 10 years down the road. I don't think that in general young people look 10, 20 years down the road. They care more about what's going on right now. I believe that the environment that we live in today is perpetuating that and encouraging that view. And it makes for some very perilous times. So we'll see what happens. and hopefully it will work out, and the system of government that we have will be resilient enough to resist any significant changes.
All right, thank you, Zandering. And last but not least, Saka, tell us a bit about yourself and your final thoughts.
I'm just a internet loudmouth. You can find me kicking around Dragnot Silva's channel and Nate the Lawyers in the comment section. As I mean, even as a Canadian, I got concerns for the future. I'm a Canadian conservative, and the more wild and crazy that politics gets down to our the treasonous colonists down south of me, the more liberal my government gets. So, obviously they've got some concerns over that stuff. But I mean, like, this is going to be interesting. I think with Ginsburg passing, unfortunately, I fear that this has changed the entire dynamic about what we're going to see in November. And unfortunately, I'm not quite as optimistic as I would have been yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think that's sort of my position too. All right, well, thank you all again. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. Thank you all once again for joining us. I will be in the Discord in a few minutes. Anyone here who wants to join us in the Discord, please do. Until then, my name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and this has been Overtime. Thank you.